The Final Four is set in men's college basketball. The Final Illini will not be participating in it. The women's Final Four will be set after tonight. In the NBA, the Bulls go seesawing once again. In baseball, the Cubs come home happy while the Sox, they get swept by the Tigers. Were you surprised? I wasn't. And we'll have a double play of Old School TV Monday. That and a whole lot more as the Second City Sports Monday edition, the first for the month of April, starts right now.
This year, my mom got me the perfect bag.
Welcome to this not April Fool's Day edition of Second City Sports. We're live in living color right here on Sports Zone Chicago, along with Miss Lakina McGee, which is she. I am Sydney Brownhead. That's me. You can follow yours surely on the Twitter, X, and the IG at SidKid80. Once again, it's SidKid80. That's SIDKID80. That's SIDKID80.
You can follow my Lakina McGee on the Twitter, X, at Kids Again, the IG.
Make sure you download that Sports Zone Chicago app wherever you get your apps. Follow Sports Zone Chicago on all social media platforms on Facebook, Twitter, X, Instagram, and YouTube. Please subscribe to our podcast. We are located at War Media Podcast. That's WARR Media, PODCASTS. We are on all podcast platforms, including the iHeartRadio app. And while you're at it, please give War Media a follow at WARR Media on all social media platforms. And thank you very much in advance for your support.
Like, share, subscribe, and tell your friends.
We are unapologetically fun, and we have very definite opinions. If you have any definite opinions during our 2-hour extravaganza, we call it Sports Talk Radio Show. You can always hit us up at Sports Zone Chicago's Facebook page or at Sports Zone Chicago on YouTube. Type in those questions and comments in the comments section. Lakina will get them up on the screen for you. But if you decide to troll and or do something silly, dumb, or stupid, even though today is a very special day, air quotes, I've given Lakina full powers to give you fools to definitely bill and be a boot.
Toodles.
But before we begin, we must remind you can get Sports Zone Chicago live in the living color right now on Roku TV. That's right. So celebrate the squad and give it the program. Sports Zone Chicago is now available on Roku TV. If you already have a Roku television, just tap on that sports folder and download that Sports Zone Chicago app. If you don't have a Roku television, but you have some handheld devices laying around, iPhone, iPad, iTouch, your Chromebook, or your PC, just hit up the Google Play Store and download that Roku TV app and access Sports Zone Chicago through that avenue. So no more excuses. Celebrate the squad and get with the program. Sports Zone Chicago is now available on Roku TV. 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year. Live and on demand.
Anytime, anywhere.
And you know we will provide.
And no fooling here. We will be providing you with some of the best here on Second City Sports. Of course, we'll have the Bulls. As Sid said, the seesawing continues. We'll explain over the weekend. We'll explain that in a second. Of course, baseball. The Cubs are, they're a little bit, they're not too sad after coming back from Texas. They got their home opener, weather permitting. White Sox. And I'll say that even though White Sox got swept, we'll say why they're encouraged. Why Sox fans should be encouraged, like Sid, and some great performance happened over this first few days of the season. Old School TV Monday and so much more. But first, Sid, the Final Four is set. The Final Four will commence for the men. Will commence in Phoenix on Saturday, just outside Phoenix, I should say. But we're gonna recap some of the top all the regional final games. We'll start, of course, with the Illini in Detroit. As the Illini, I mean, this kind of went. We talked about before we got on. Before we started recording, said that it kind of went as I expected because it's going to be hard. They're facing the defending champions in UConn. They beat UConn 77-52. Donovan Clingan had 22 points. I think it was the region's most outstanding player. Marcus Demons had 17 points in the losing effort for Illinois. Now, late in the first half, the Illini, to their credit, they came back after they were down a little bit, about 14, 15 points. They came back, got down to 4. Now I stepped aside for a little bit, got stuff going, got my dinner, ordered me some dinner and whatever, and Easter stuff. I come back. Well, after the first timeouts, it was 30 points. Apparently, the Huskies went on a 30-0 run to start the second half, and I have to say, and this is interesting too because even in the previous round, UConn didn't shoot the ball well from 3. They still didn't shoot the ball well from 3, so this score could have been even worse. They were 3 for 17 from 3. Just imagine had they hit their 3, this game would have really been out of hand. But yeah, it was all UConn in the second half.
We talked about it on Friday, Lakina. I was worried about the Illini getting in foul trouble and their interior defense being eaten up. Foul trouble wasn't the issue, Lakina. UConn used their advantage to their swing, which was scoring inside. And like you said, Copley had a great game. But the Illini players outside of Marcus Domas, they really didn't step up. Guerrier didn't step up. Terrence Shannon Jr., he really disappeared after playing like the best player in the country for the earlier rounds in the tournament. He really did not step up. Coleman Hawkins, he disappeared. And the Illini was just totally outmatched. I know they shot the ball poorly from both 2-point range and 3-point range, around 25, 26% respectively. But Lakina, sometimes you had to give it up to the other team. And like you said before, UConn outclassed them. They were the better team, as we talked about too also on Friday. Even though it was a clean game in the first half in terms of turnovers, I think UConn had 3, Illinois had 2. That second half, we talked about it on Friday, Lakina. If you're Illinois, if you turn the ball over once too many times, veteran teams like UConn would take advantage, and that's what happened in that second half.
It was basically all UConn. UConn scored 49 points, and that was it was. Look, we kind of figured that this was going to happen, especially once it got going. Clingan, he got going and on the inside, of course. Tristan Newman, I should say, hit some big shots. Cam Spencer had some nice shots to kind of open things up here. And look, it was sort of one of those things where you're just like, yeah, it got ugly, and it got ugly really quick. And look, all you can do, there was really nothing the Illini could do. I mean, you heard Coleman Hawkins' comments after the game. Look, they just got outmanned. And look, you kind of show you why, they're back to the Final Four for the 8th time.
Yeah, and like I said, congrats to UConn for reaching the Final Four. Illinois, they didn't have a great year. They had a very good year. There's only one team that's going to have a great year, and that's the team that's going to raise the national championship plaque next Monday night outside of Phoenix in the national championship game. But Illinois did have a good year. Lakina finishing the season at 29 wins and 9 losses. We talked about before the tournament, Illinois head coach Brad Underwood. I told you I was one of those people that had his you-know-what under the hot seat this year. Did he exceed expectations? Yes. And I said during our preview show 3 weeks ago, in our show the day after, that Illinois, the road was set up for them to get to the Sweet 16. They got to the Sweet 16. They got to the Elite 8. Now the pressure's on Illinois to get to the Final Four. Can they do that next year? It's going to be tough. I'll caution you guys right now, with those 4 West Coast schools joining the Big Ten next year in Oregon, Washington, UCLA, and USC, the road's going to get tougher. But the challenge should be accepted by Illinois that this team, whatever talent they get, it should be good enough to at least get to the Final Four next year.
They actually did get a nice signing here. Let me get his name, as I can put a big man and let me get a Mercer transfer, 5th-year guy, Jake Davis. He's a big guy up front. He can he's a freshman. 39% from the 3, so he can shoot the 3 very well. So maybe this is the start of many, especially with how it all goes with the transfer portal. Look, these could turn around pretty quick. So, but like you said, it's going to get even tougher with like you said, Washington, Oregon, and the LA schools joining the Big Ten starting later this summer. Yeah, it's going to get a little bit tougher for Illinois, but it's going to be a dogfight in some of those sports like we've been talking about for the last few months. So again, congrats to UConn. UConn, very businesslike. They didn't get too, excited. I know, Dan Hurley is very animated. Like he says, he can be a jerk at times. So, but to his credit. But yeah, I mean, look, UConn is and I said this on Twitter. I'm going to say it here. I think UConn, the only team that can beat UConn at this point is UConn themselves. Look, we saw. Well, we'll talk more about it on Friday when we preview the Final Four games. But Yeah, look, they've had their bad games. Look, that great game against Creighton, last month. I mean, people thought that they were questioning whether or not this team could they do it, and they've been answering the bell ever since. To their credit.
Yeah, and we talked about last month. Now 2 months now, 2 months ago, since it's April, that you can't have a shot to repeat. And I say yes. Now I didn't guarantee it, but they had a great shot to repeat because we talked about all the other teams like Kansas, Duke, North Carolina, and some of the other top schools that took turns of being number one all season long. UConn just kept on rolling, being consistent in that tough Big East conference. You had Villanova, who were disappointing this year. St. John's, of course, Marquette. We'll get to them on the other side of this break. But UConn's been very, very consistent, and you cannot take that away from them. Like you said, they're well coached by Dan Hurley. And just to go back, to put a bow on this Illinois contest, with UConn leading by 5.5, I got the feeling that Dan Hurley got into their butts in that locker room because the way they were playing toward the end of that first half, they should have been up by double digits. You took Illinois' best punch. Illinois, you gave them confidence going into that locker room. And the way that UConn came out in that second half, they played like champions.
All right, so you're listening to Second City Sports on Sports of Chicago. Lakeem McGee, Cindy Brown with you. I guess we can talk about this a little bit before we go to break. Alabama, from the West region, they beat Clemson. Mark Sears shot some, got some big shots in that game, 89-82, with the win hanging on against Clemson to go into their first ever. And again, we'll talk about this, after the break a little bit more. I just want to kind of get it going here. But Bama it was a total team effort there by Sears. I mean, Sears, a transfer from Ohio. We talked about Grant Nelson. He made some couple of key blocks. Also to Nick Pringle, also a veteran, guy. He hit some big shots late for Alabama. And okay, we'll talk about this a little bit more after the break. But to Nate Osa's credit, though, he's doing this with a brand new squad. A lot of the Steers and Pringle, Nelson, those guys were not there last year. A lot of the coaches, that was on his staff, they left too, and their training staff as well. So the fact that Nate Osa was able to do this, got his team to the Final Four after they had their hiccups in the SEC, but the fact they were to come back and do this with a virtually new squad, new team, is nothing short of remarkable.
Yeah, and this is the effect of the NIL and transfer portal rule, and one of those schools that took advantage of it was Alabama. Remember, Lakina, I talked about this on our show last Friday. We all remember what happened with that Brandon Miller squad last year. Mm-hmm. Now he's in the NBA. You thought that team had the chance to reach the Final Four, but like you said, a whole new staff of players and coaches. They had a common goal. They got hot, just like another team that we're going to talk about after the break. And they stuck together, and they outworked Clemson last Saturday to get the W. But congrats to Alabama for getting that win. It was very much deserved. All-around team effort, in my opinion.
Yeah, it was one of those games where Clemson had their chances. It was kind of back and forth for a little bit. And I think, look, Brett Brownwell should be very proud of his guys. I think no one really thought that they could, would get this far, especially, I don't want to say that they overachieved, but I think no one really expected them to do much in this season. They beat North Carolina for just the second time ever. They played Duke very close. They got in the tournament, as a 6. They were able to kind of, they had pulled a couple of upsets on the way. And look, they just ran into an Alabama team that's, that's getting hot late. And look, I think hopefully Clemson can build on this because they've had their shots in hoops, but they're not really. We know they're a football school, so like Alabama, ironically. So this is something that hopefully they can build on. And look, with the transfer portals and stuff like that, they can kind of maybe they can come back. Maybe this is a flash in the pan for the Tigers hoops program.
Yeah, they came out of nowhere this year, Lakina. They were very competitive against North Carolina and they beat some of the other top schools in their conference in the ACC. And so they were very battle tested. And like you said, they just ran up against a wall in Alabama in the last seconds of the game. But like you said, they should be commended as well. Let's see, like Alabama's doing right now. I'm not going to say transition to a basketball school, and be competitive like their football team and have that sustained success.
All right, we're going to talk about the rest of the Final Four as it's set up from last night, including a team that's going for the first time. Well, actually, in both cases, they're both going for the first time in 40-plus years. And also, too, of course, we'll talk a little bit of women's half their Final Four is set. They're getting ready to, including a big matchup coming up, and also do some coaching changes coming up as well. So a lot to do still with college too. Coming next. So Keenan McGee, City Brown, Second City Sports, Sports of Chicago. No fooling here. We'll be back right after this.
This year, my mom got me the perfect bag for back to school.
These colorful binders help me stay organized.
These headphones are just what I need for studying.
These new sneakers are just what I needed for the new year.
This jacket is a real must-have.
My parents got me the skateboard I wanted. It's pretty cool.
These scissors really come in handy in art class. These colored pencils, too.
These new socks, they can be a real lifesaver.
I finally got my own phone to stay in touch with my mom.
Trisha's having a sleepover tonight. Can I go?
I wonder about Lucy's friends. What should I say? I know you're only 10, but one of these days a friend will offer you a drink. And alcohol at your age can lead to so many things. None of them good.
So can I go to the sleepover?
Lucy, I want you to promise me
I
something.
finished my homework.
Bigger promise. If there's any drinking, I want you to say, "No thanks, not my thing."
Mom.
I promise you. Your real friends won't care. Deal?
Sure.
Really?
I promise, Mom.
They really do hear you.
Did you pack your toothbrush?
For tips on how to start the talk, visit underagedrinking.samhsa.gov, a public service message from the Substance Abuse and Mental Health Services Administration.
Hey, this is Dr. J, and I listen to Sean and Maya in the morning.
Rocking and rolling and rocking right here on Second City Sports, the Monday edition, the first from the month of April. You're live and in living color right here on Sports Zone Chicago. I'm Sid, that's Lakina. You can follow yours truly on the Twitter, X, and the IG at SidKid80. Once again, it's SidKid80, SIDKID80. That's SIDKID80.
You follow my Keenan McGee on the Twitter, X, and Kids again, IG.
We have less than 85 minutes left of this extravaganza we call the Sports Talk Radio Show. If you have any questions or comments for us, please go to Sports Zone Chicago's Facebook page or at Sports Zone Chicago on YouTube. Type in those questions or comments in the comments section. Lakina will get them up on the screen for you.
All right, Sid, let's talk about yesterday's regional final games. We'll go to let's go to the Midwest region as Purdue hung on against Tennessee 72-66. This actually was literally a mirror image of what happened when these two played against each other in Maui all the way back in right before Thanksgiving. And kind of a very similar situation. Purdue was up for a little bit. It was kind of back and forth. Tennessee actually took the lead for a little bit. They just couldn't get the shots going. I know some people were saying that they called it kind of tied up with Edey, but you know what? It's one of those things where you're like, look, Dalton Knecht, to his credit, he had 37 points, 6 for 12 from a 3-point range. Just the rest of the guys just couldn't get it going. He didn't have any help, and I think that was the problem. The main problem for Tennessee, because it wasn't like Purdue, especially. I know people make fun of the free throw discrepancy, but they only shot 63% from the free throw line. So it wasn't like Tennessee had their chances, they just couldn't get it going outside Knecht. And to their credit, Edey had 40 points and 16 boards, which is, I think that's just absurd. The fact that what he can do and such. And I think the last guy to do that was all the way back to 1990 when Bo Kimbo did that in a loss to UNLV, because they got it was like 141 to like 110 or something like that. But this is actually Purdue's first trip to the Final Fours. You got to go all the way back to 1980. Joe Barry Carroll and Keith Amundsen were on that. Were the stars on that
Joe
team.
Barry Carroll reference. I haven't heard that name in years.
Right. So I remember, because oh goodness. And there's a name, right? But yeah, you saw Gene Katie there. You could tell just so much pure joy. You saw the embrace between Edey and Coach Matt Painter after the game, and you could tell that Edey really wants this. And look again, very similar to what happened in Maui.
Yeah, that's what Zach Edey came back to school for, right? And he's finally get a chance to play for a national championship. But you took the words right out of my mouth, regarding Tennessee. Dalton Knecht was connecting, no pun intended, with 37 points. But I didn't see much help from any of his teammates. And Purdue, just like we talked about with UConn and Illinois in our last segment, Purdue used their strength to their advantage, which means scoring inside. Zach Edey, you mentioned scoring 40 points. They shot the ball well overall at 45%, but never mind Purdue shooting 20% from three-point range, because it doesn't matter, because they get majority of their points inside the paint. They've been doing that all year. Also, too, Purdue banged the boards. They had a plus 21 margin in rebounding, 47-26 over Tennessee. Purdue got what they needed down the stretch, and they played better defense than Tennessee down the stretch. So that's one of the reasons why they won. And so Zach Edey has been one of the best players in the country all year. He'll get to show that next weekend in the Final Four.
Yeah, Fletcher Loyer had some big shots. As soon as Lance Jones hit that big three, because you saw what he did against Illinois at the end of the regular season, he hit that big 3-pointer that kind of sealed the regular season title for them. And Tennessee just couldn't get it going. I mean, Ziegler only had 9 points. Ado didn't score any points. I mean, it just wasn't those things where they just weren't shooting the ball well. And Josiah Jordan James only had 8 points, so it was just like where was Knecht was doing his thing, but where the hell was everyone else? So give Purdue some credit. And they want to do the turnaround title as like Virginia did, back in 19. We lose it to a 16 seed, come back the next year and win a championship. So we'll see. It's going to be interesting, but they're going to be facing a team that's on a Cinderella run. Well, I guess don't call them Cinderella, because they get a little insulted by that. North Carolina State in the South region down in Dallas. They beat Duke 76-64. They scored 55 points after they were down 6 at the half. And for me, I think, I know you're a big fan of this team, Sid. I think, DJ Burns, the guy. My mom said he should be a lineman, and he should be playing football. So, you can take that for what you will.
She's the second person that said that.
Yeah, well, no, I think Andrew Brandt, who is of course is an NFL exec. He even said that, look, he should be getting ready for the draft in a few weeks. DJ Horn had 20 points. It was a DJ and DJ show. They kind of let the Wayne also to their defense. Got it going. And Duke just couldn't get it going in the 3-point range. Only 5 for 20. And to me, I think that was a big difference, because had Duke hit some of those shots, especially in the first half, because they missed a lot of threes there. So I think they only made one. They were 1 for 7 or something like that. If they hit a couple of those, it would have been a totally different game.
Yeah, and speaking of defense, we talked about with the last 2 games that we review, especially the strength that is used at this time of year, scoring inside and great guard play. And DJ Burns did that for North Carolina yesterday, scoring 29 points rather. And Philip Kowski, I know he's Duke's best defender, especially from the inside. he got eaten up yesterday from start to finish. And like you said, looking at Duke would have hit some of the outside shots, especially in that first half. Maybe they would have won this game because North Carolina State didn't shoot the ball great from 3-point range either. They shot at a 23% clip. Duke at 25%. So the Wolfpack used their strength. DJ Burns was the operator inside, feed the beast, and that's what happened. And O'Connell made some big shots down the stretch. Like you mentioned, DJ Horn as well. Those guys did it. Other players from Duke didn't. I know Jared McClain had a great game with 32 points, but Phil Koskinen didn't have a great game offensively. He got eaten up inside on defense, but you didn't see too much help from Duke either. So congratulations to North Carolina State for winning this. Their first trip to the Final Four since 1983. And Lakina, I know we're not supposed to call them Cinderella, but remember, if they didn't win that ACC tournament, they would have been sitting at home. So I believe this is 8 or 9 straight wins because they had to win all 5 games to qualify to go to the NCAA tournament. I believe this is win number 9 consecutive wins for them. Mm-hmm. I know many people don't want to see them because they're not the big sexy school, the big sexy names, all that. But they worked their butts out and they deserve this trip to the Final Four.
Yeah, if O'Connell had not hit that three-point shot against Virginia, if Tony Bennett had fouled him, perhaps. Mm-hmm. Who knows? I mean, it's one of those things where I know people want to make it a sort of parallel this team to the 83 team. It's kind of hard to do that because back then, in 83, I mean, they really, people kind of expected North Carolina State to finish in the middle of the pack. I don't think anybody thought that, they would get this far. And plus they only had to play like 3 games. I think they only had to win like 3 games, I think, back then. This team.
Yeah, because the tournament expanded the next year.
Yeah, and because it was only, I think,
no, 2 years later. Sorry, 2 years later.
Yeah, 2 years later. I think it was like only 40. No, it was 30. It was 38, I think, back then in 83. And after it just expanded from the previous time, it was only 32. But it was a sort of one of those days where, give Kevin Keatts credit for what he's done, the fact that these guys have been able to kind of get it, going and whatnot. And look, I mean, DJ Burris Jr. has become a cult figure. Every year that they're always like that cult figure that kind of comes out of nowhere. And, he's that guy. I remember he was at Western Kentucky last year. And of course he transferred to North Carolina State. And, he's been able to kind of use his strength and they've had a tough time, getting that going there to kind of control him. So him versus Edey on Saturday. Of course, we'll talk about more of that on Friday, but it's going to be very interesting. It's going to be interesting theater because they're both are very similar. And look, Burris only 6'9" and like 270. Edey's, I think, like 7'4" and like, you saw what happened, when they were cutting the nets. He didn't need that freaking ladder. So
he was the ladder.
Yeah, exactly. So that was a little bit odd. So yeah, it's going to be a good theater here. But I'm going to talk about Duke for a second. Actually, Second City Sports on Sports Chicago. Keenan McGee, Sidney Brown with you. There are already some people saying that John Shire should be gone. Look, guys, it's only been 2 years. Look, you know how long it took for Coach K to get to the final, his first Final Four? It took him 6 years. And plus, he's got with the transfer portal and stuff, he's got a couple big recruits coming in next year.
Not to interrupt you, Lakina, but Coach K came in after that Duke team made it in '86, right, to the final?
No. He came in 1980. Remember? Because remember they were at the net. They in '78, 2 years before they went to the national championship game against Kentucky.
Oh, that's right. Okay.
Yeah, with Jaminski and just Bernarkel and that group whose hair has not moved since then. He's not. I swear, it's gotten grayer, but it has not moved. So I'm just gonna say it right there.
I stand corrected.
Yeah, no. You're fine. But yeah, I mean, look, it took him 6 years to get to his first Final Four. Of course, the anniversary of that just happened. Don't tell Jay Billis that because he still has nightmares about that. But yeah, I mean, look, Shire's got a good recruiting class coming in. I'm sure he's going to do very well at the transfer portal. Duke will be fine. I think for people to kind of like, I want him gone. Stop. Don't do that. Give the guy some time. It's only been 2 freaking years, for God's sakes.
I know people are hard on Duke because most people hate Duke, and I get it. But like you said, John Shire has done a great job. I think they lost in the second round last year, if I'm not mistaken. So this program has made progress. And just because it's Duke, I know people don't want to hear. I'm not a big fan of Duke's either, even though the hate has been lessened over the last couple of years. But for yours truly. But Duke is still a big-time school. People still want to go there. So they're going to get the talent. Right. So people think they're going to go 0-30. That's not happening.
And he can recruit too. That's one of the reasons why. Look, he was the one that got Zion Williamson to go to Duke when he could have went to like a prep school or go to the G League. So That was the reason why he got the job. So we know, look, he, like I say, he got a couple of big time recruits. I think Graham Funk, I think that's his name. The big guy. Then he got another big guy from Ghana, I believe. And you got the transfer portal too. So he can build on that. Look, he could be right there next year. So for people who want him gone after 2 years, I mean, come on, guys. Seriously.
Yeah, you got to start from the bottom and go your way to the top. Like you said, Duke had the talent already. Was it like what Coach K had during his last few years? No. But the way parity is in college basketball, you can just grab 2-3 players, top 2-3 players, and you're on a roll to the Final Four. So Duke is not that far away. They're right there. They went to the Elite Eight this year. So like I said, they're going to be back next year. And the way the atmosphere is for college basketball, they're not going to go anywhere anytime soon.
Oh no, absolutely not. So so congrats to all four members officially on the Final Four. The games will be on Saturday. And remember, both these games are on TBS. Remember, TBS has the Final Four and the national championship game this year. Of course, the first game will be NC State and Purdue. That's will be at 5:09. And in the main course, if you will, Alabama and UConn. We'll see if Bama can at least give UConn a game. Well, like I said, look, these can happen, in the tournament, especially in the Final Four. Look, we saw what happened with Duke years ago against UNLV in '91. One
of the best college basketball games I've ever seen.
Yeah, really, yeah, definitely, right. Very entertaining, and I'm trying to think of another one that Louis. In '83, I know we were like little kids, but Louisville and Houston from '83, that was a really good game as well.
Yeah.
So. Yeah, so lots of them over the years and currently, but even the San Diego State FAU game from last year was actually pretty good. So I think that was I think there've been some great games. So we'll see if it sticks here. So going to some coaching news for a second. Andy Enfield, who is no longer at USC, is now the head coach over at SMU. Also, too, DePaul Mesa official Brian Malls is now the assistant with Chris Holtman over at DePaul, and Robert Essen. I know the name doesn't sound, from. I know our buddy Hoodie, Jonathan Hood. I know he said on the Captain Hood show, on J Hood show on ESPN. He said, "Who? This is a guy that's been around for a little bit. He was an assistant, with Jared Haas over at Stanford and UAB. He also has been at Maryland. So this guy does have the pedigree. It's going to be a first head coaching job. So we'll see how this goes for UIC."
Yeah, congrats to you. Congrats to him getting that job at UIC. He's going to have some tough task ahead of him. Hopefully, they have the NIL money straight. I know they play in the Missouri Valley Conference now, so it is a step up for that school. So, can they make the turnaround like Loyola Chicago did this year with their being their second year in the A-10? It's going to be a tall task, but we'll see what happens.
Should be interesting there as well. Now let's talk about the women for a second, Sid. South Carolina, they're set for the 7th straight year. They're going back to the Final Four. They beat Oregon State 70-58. And if you saw after the game, that was actually really cool. Coach Don Staley was talking with Holly Rowe. They had the girls had the confetti. It was actually really funny. And she said she looked confetti. I don't know, Holly might not have been a big fan of it, but it actually matched her outfit though too. I think it was actually pretty cool. Carmela Cardoso had 12 points for South Carolina. Nice, and that's some big rebounds there for her. Bree Hall had 10 points. So they're now 30. They're 36-0 right now, and you gotta think that. They won this in Albany, and Oregon State. Look, they had a great run. They got all the way out to the Elite for the first time in their program history, so they should be commended. But they just kind of ran into a buzzsaw as the Gamecocks pulled away late.
This is one of South Carolina's closest margins of victory since the LSU game last month.
Yeah. Yep.
So I know they've been tested here, and I think to the SEC title game, which they unfortunately that. Verbal scuffle and shoving match broke out. But yeah, I know Don Staley's team was tested at various points, as I mentioned, throughout the year. But I like Don Staley's team. That's a tough physical team, especially when they play LSU. I know we'll get to them in a second. But Don Staley, she's from Philadelphia. She's that tough, gritty personality. She transferred that into her players. Her players are like that. So they're the best in college basketball. We'll see what happens with them in the Final Four next weekend.
Yeah, they're going to be facing NC State. Now, no, I'm not repeating themselves. NC State actually has a solid college hoops program themselves. 76-66. They beat the number 1 seed in the Portland region, Oregon. Yeah, was it Maine? No, Oregon. Well, they still get this region. I don't ask me why the women they do the region stuff or whatever. But yeah, I think this is I think this is 2017. I think when South Carolina did it, where both the men and the women are going to the Final Four the same year. I mean, I think it was the late great Kay Yao. She was the coach there when they went in '98. Isaiah James, she's one of those kind of like those mid-tier players that you probably never heard of. You probably don't know too much about. She had 27 points, made some big shots for NC State as they pulled off the upset against Texas.
Yeah, congratulations to NC State. And like you said, the 10-point margin victory proves to what they've been all about all year. Lakina, I'll ask you because you're more into than the women's side than me, but is it that common to see the top schools get upset on the women's side? Because we see it all the time in the men's side outside of Duke and North Carolina and Kentucky to a lesser extent, but it seems like it's more common in the women's game than it are in the men's.
I think it's happened more in recent years. I think I know Arizona when they got to the Final Four in the bubble Final Four as they call it. I think they did beat a 1 seed on their way to the title game against they lost to Stanford. But yeah, it's kind of been happening more and more on the women's side, more like the last decade. I think back then it really wasn't happening as much. So I think with the spread out of the talent and more these top tier players going to some of the other schools and spreading it out a little bit, I think you're seeing teams like NC State, Westmore, who's been doing this for a long time. He's finally getting his due, getting his first shot, playing a coach in the Final Four after I think that's been around forever, it feels like. But yeah, I mean, look, I think it's a good thing. I think it's one of the reasons why one's gambling. No one wants to say that, but it is. There's another reason why women's basketball kind of be on the upswing. They'll not wait for that conversation. But yeah, I think the spread out of the talent and the wealth and everything, I think that's really, really has helped the popularity. And it's good to see teams like NC State who they play in the ACC. They've been ballot tested like the men. So I don't think people should be too shocked, but I think they have a young squad. I think they're kind of getting hot at the right time.
I want to talk about these two games tonight. Of course, yours truly will be watching it live via his living room 4K HD television, 42 inches in all. This game will start at 6 o'clock on Chicago time on ESPN. That's LSU versus Iowa. Of course, we talked about what happened between Angel Reese and Kayla Clark last year in the Final Four. Unfortunately, we'll get this matchup in the Elite 8, not in the Final Four. Lakina, we know that Kayla Clark's college career will be coming to an end soon. If Angel Reese is watching and listening to this, she wants it to end tonight. Mm-hmm. But I hope we get a classic game, Lakina. I know ESPN, I know they had the other game as well, UConn and USC. We'll get to it in just a sec. But these two games, they're highly competitive, which I expected to be. It'll probably be the two highest rated women's college basketball games ever on that network. Because you have the star power there, but just hopefully you'll get a competitive contest.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting that that LSU and Iowa, I know people have been wanting this matchup. I'm a little afraid because I've seen how Iowa plays, especially we saw them struggle against that West Virginia press. That press against them, press Virginia. Of course, it happens on the women's side too, and I kind of felt like they kind of leapt into that win. Nobody wants to say it, but I think they did. And I know they had they kind of outmanned Colorado. They couldn't get it going there. The Lady Buffs just couldn't get it going. And to me, if you're asking me who I think has the edge, I think LSU does because I trust their supporting cast, especially if Angel Reese doesn't have a kind of off game. I trust her supporting cast rather than Caitlin's supporting cast, if that makes sense, because I feel like, if she has an off game, we're talking about Reese, she has others there that can kind of pick up the slack. You saw what happened in that, it's going to be interesting to see like which supporting cast can step up to help out their star players. And I think with all the stuff, I know all the stuff going on with Kim Mulkey and that weirdness there, but I think they want to try to make it as minimal as a distraction as possible. So if you're LSU, you want to try to kind of like send a message early. And I think that, like I said, I think the key for me here is it's going to be, that supporting cast. I feel like, you've got, like I said, you got Anissa Morrow, you got some of the other supporting cast members there. I know that Shafia Johnson, Fujay Johnson. I can't get her freaking name right. But yeah, she made some big shots late in that game in their previous round. So, like I said, I trust their supporting cast, and I do Iowa's. I think that's going to be the key in this game.
Also, too, I know head coach Kim Mullarkey of LSU. We talked about that controversy about the LA Times article over the weekend. She ripped them, but I wonder if she's going to use that as extra motivation as well. Remember, she benched her point guard in the last game, so I wonder if she's going to pull that again on her, if not somebody else. If LSU heaven forbid they get out to a slow start.
I think that's going to be the key. I think you want to try to jump on Iowa early. Make sure you limit Clark as much as possible. I know that's going to be a tough task, but look, West Virginia, I should say, look, they kind of gave you the formula. So if you can do that, I mean, they may have a shot. I think LSU will probably pull this game out.
Yeah, Iowa, as of right now, they're appointed to have favorite according to Vegas. So, like you mentioned with the betting in college basketball, I know NCAA is advertising, draw the line and all that BS, but people are going to be betting this game and watching this game in more ways than one, with many interests. So we should see about that game. Of course, that game is tonight at 6 p.m. Central Standard Time on ESPN, followed by number 3 UConn at number 1 USC. That's at 8 o'clock p.m. Chicago time on ESPN. That's the last game for the last of the Final Four berth to be given out. I know Juju Watkins is supposed to be the next big female star in college basketball. She plays for the USC Trojans. I'll get a chance to see her from start to finish tonight. UConn, Gino Olamela. I know that team, UConn, is 32-5 on the year. I know they're not as dominant as they were over the last decade or so, but I think they should not be overlooked.
Yeah, I mean, Paige Beckers, of course, she missed the whole year last season due to a torn ACL. She's back with a vengeance. And look, Juju Watkins, look, she also has a great supporting cast around her, and so does Becker. So, like I said, it's going to be about the supporting cast as much as stars, I think, because USC, they're trying to go back to the Final Four for the first time, since Cheryl Miller was on the team back in the early 80s. With her,
we were kids then.
Yeah, her and Cynthia Cooper and Pam McGee, no relation to this McGee in that game. They were actually back in the Elite Eight for the first time since Cheryl Miller was the head coach, and Lisa Leslie was a star on that team. UConn, this will be their first Final Four. This would be their first Final Four appearance since I think like about a decade. It's been that long for them as well, not as long, but it's been even longer for USC. So, like I said, I think tonight it's really good. It's really going to be the supporting cast. I really think that that's going to be the key here in all 4 of these games. So we'll see what happens tonight. That game will be after the LSU Iowa game, and hopefully both these games will be entertaining, if nothing else. Now, real quick before we go to break, Sid, keeping in the veteran powerhouse, Tennessee has parted ways with Coach Kelly Harper. After 5 seasons, yeah, I was so bummed that it didn't work out for her there. It's been a minute. People are saying maybe Carol Losser's over at Duke now. Do they stick with that Pat Summittry and maybe the third time will be the charm there, or do they go completely outside the box?
You may have to try something new, because if you went to the well once, okay, it didn't work. If you went to the well twice, if it didn't work, the third time is not the charm. You maybe have to go outside the family.
Could we just see what they do down there in Tennessee on the women's side? Because I feel like women's basketball is great. Yeah, it's great that UConn and Stanford, and of course you got some upstarts like the Iowas. SC being back at the top again or near the top is great. But to me, I think Tennessee, is a missing piece. I really think that women's hoops is even better with Tennessee in the mix. That's just my opinion.
Oh yeah. Like you said, that's been a historic program for a long time. The late great Pat Summitt helped put that program on the map. Of course, she had great players like Shamika Hallsclaw and others.
Candace Parker.
Our girl from Chicago who's on TNT now. Her name's escaping me.
Candace Parker.
Candace Parker. Thank you. Like I said, just like we talked about in the NBA with the New York Knicks and the Lakers and the Celtics being great for the NBA product, like you said, the Lady Volunteers is great for women's college basketball as well.
So, yeah, you're right. They may have to go outside the box and maybe do something completely different. We'll see. So we'll keep you guys updated on that. But hour number 1 in the books, hour number 2 straight ahead. Still got a busy hour 2 coming up. Where you want to go to first, Sid?
Baseball.
All right. Sox should be encouraged, even though they got swept by the Tigers. The Cubs were right back home for their first home opener of the season. Not too bad. And of course, Juan Soto just smacking the ball out of the park, both figuratively and literally. So lots of great series to recap in these first few games. Of course, we got Old School TV Monday, of course, the NBA, the Bulls, seesawing as usual, and a whole lot more. The Katie McGee City Brown Second City Sports on Sports Chicago Diamond Talk coming up right after this.
No, I don't know though. I'm scared. I mean, you're so
Do you know that you're in my lane? No, not at all. Are you not paying attention? Are you texting? I was just checking in with my mom. I was telling her that I thought we'd be home by 6. It's okay. There's enough time. Just pay attention. I'm not even halfway through my text. There's no way. I'm not even going to look up. My babies are in the car. You have to pay attention. It's just supposed to be a quick text. I'm so sorry.
Hi, I'm Tom Brady, the director of DODEA. September is National Suicide Prevention and Awareness Month. The simple act of reaching out and caring for those in our communities is something we all can do. Just being there for someone you care about can be a tremendous first step in getting them access to confidential resources and support that they need. It only takes one person and one small act and 1 minute to make a difference. Let's make a difference.
Move it!
Many will hear the calling. Few will earn the title. United States Marine. The few, the proud, the Marines.
Welcome back to hour number 2 of Second City Sports, the Monday edition, the first for the month of April. No, this is not an April Fool's joke. We're live in the living color right here on Sports Zone Chicago. I'm Sid. That's Lakina. You can follow yours truly on the Twitter, X, and the IG at CK80. Once again, at CK80. That's SIDKID80. That's SIDKID80.
You can follow my Katie McGee on the Twitter, X, that goes on the IG.
We have less than 55 minutes left for this extravaganza we call a Sports Talk Radio Show. If you have any questions or comments for us, you can always hit us up at Sports Zone Chicago's Facebook page or at Sports Zone Chicago on YouTube. Type in those questions or comments in the comment section. Lakina will get them up on the screen for you. And just a daily reminder, you can catch Sports Zone Chicago live in the living color right now on Roku TV.
All right, Sid, let's talk about the first few games of the MLB season, shall we? All right, so let's start with the Cubs because they actually avoided the sweep and they went against the defending champion Rangers 9-5. They, like I said, they avoid the sweep in 10. Well, it was actually a pretty interesting. It was kind of like a back and forth game. It was actually very entertaining, oddly enough. To their credit, Christopher Well got things going with a home run. Still, hot from the ball. Ian Happ drew a walk in the 9th inning, also too. But it was Seiya Suzuki's two-run single that broke the game open. Of course, and also Bellinger had an infield single that Happ had scored. So they scored 4 runs in the 9th, and they avoided the sweep against the Rangers.
Yeah, it was nice to see those Cubs bats wake up. You saw a little bit of that on Saturday, but yesterday they took full advantage of it, like you mentioned. Ian Happ, let's not forget, he also went 4 for 5. He's your new leadoff hitter this year. He had 2 RBI to be exact. Seiya Suzuki, as we talked about with Evan Altman this time last week, he needs to stay healthy because we all know that he has all-star type talent when he does stay healthy. Yeah, he chipped in, as you mentioned, with 2 RBI yesterday. But you mentioned Christopher Morel, 3 RBI yesterday, including that early inning home run. But Jordan Wicks, he's one of those starting pitchers going to have to step up because Justin Steele's on the IL. We all know that Jeremy Santayan's on the IL as well with that back injury. So Jordan Wicks he wasn't too great, but he did okay. 4 innings pitched, 6 strikeouts, gave up 3 walks, gave up 2 earned runs, and gave up 5 hits. It was okay. It was okay, even considering that you're facing the defending World Series champion Texas Rangers. But I thought he did okay. But once the Cubs put those 4 runs up in the 9th inning, that bullpen, you didn't have to rely on them too much. Abel Azalai, even though it wasn't considered a save, he shut things down at the end.
Yeah, it is what you want. You kind of have to play a little bit that with the pitching, especially with Steele's going to be out for the next 10 to 15 days. So you got to have to step up a little bit if you're the Cubs. So you play Colorado starting today. Well, it's like I don't think they're going to get the game in. It's just very cool. It's in the 40s, but Colorado. I know they lost 3 out of 4 in their series, so we'll talk about that in a second. But I think you should be able to beat Colorado pretty easily. Get at least a couple of these games, and hopefully get back to 500. And look, I think if you're like it's been saying, you got Shota Amanaga. He's going to be get his first MLB start, so hopefully he can shut down the Rockies.
And it's the return once again of former Cubs star Chris Bryant. Of course, now he's playing with Colorado. I believe this is his 3rd year with the team, so year number 3 with the Purple Gang. So we'll see if he got a great reception or not. Like I said, they already have the turf off the field, and they get ready to get going here in the next 10 minutes or so. But if you're Cubs manager Craig Counsell, you knew there was going to be challenges ahead of the season because many people, including yours truly, expected them to win the NL Central Division. And the pitching staff could have been stronger from the front office, but Jed Hoyer said that this is the staff you're going to go to for now to at least the July 31st trade deadline. So with those 2 injuries I just mentioned earlier, it's going to be a challenge right away for Craig Counsell to get this starting staff at least through the next month without Justin Steele.
It'll be interesting to see what happens there. As for the White Sox, I'll say this. They're playing Atlanta right now. They just started the first pitch, and I'll say this. You should be a little bit encouraged. I mean, you were right there with all 3 of those games get Detroit before you got swept by them. Luis Robert Jr. had those 2 home runs on Saturday. Unfortunately, they still lost that game, unfortunately. But Crotchet had that that great game in the opener. So there have been some. You didn't get your butts kicked. I guess that's probably one way to look at it if you're the White Sox. Maybe.
Here's the thing, Lakina. The starting pitching, at least 2 out of those 3 games were very good. Eric Fetty pitched well yesterday. The Sox should have won that game, but the bullpen let the Sox down again. Saturday's game, I know Soroka's, the former Atlanta Brave, he was part of the Emmer Bummer trade back in November. He didn't have a great game, but the Sox did put up 6 runs on the board. It was nice for the offense on Saturday to show up, but their bullpen once again couldn't hold it. And see, here's the thing, Lakina, and we talked about this too before the season started. It's going to be, especially with this type of weather that we're having right now, the Sox, and we've been saying this for years about the Sox, even when they won the division in 2021. How are you going to manufacture ones when great pitchers shut you down? And that's what the Sox are finding out right now, especially even though they don't have great talent up and down that lineup. You still have Luis Robert Jr. You still have Eloy Jimenez, who got hurt again yesterday. And Yohan Moncada.
Got hurt.
Outside those three, where are you going to get your offense from? That's just me. And I know that Sox manager Pedro Grifol talks about playing fast, but you got to play fast. You know how you play fast? You get on base. And how you get on have it on the base pass? You draw walks and you steal bases. They didn't do that consistently throughout these 3 games, Lakina. Maybe it's just me, but how do you get on base? You get a hit, you draw walks, which this team cannot do, and you steal bases, which I haven't seen them do. I know they had the double steal on Saturday, but outside of that, you can't steal bases. Why? Because you can't get on base consistent enough.
And you're not scoring consistently enough either. And I think that's another thing that the Sox have to worry about. And at least Cope actually looked good yesterday, coming off the bullpen. So I guess that's some encouragement if you're the Sox. So like I said, we'll see. Hopefully it won't be too bad against Atlanta. Maybe, hopefully. So, they'll be interesting. I know Atlanta, you got to wonder, they may not be in a good mood. I know they lost. They won 2 out of 4 against the Phillies, and of course they lost that rubber match. They had actually had a shot to sweep, so they lost that game 5-4. And you got to wonder if I'm kind of impressed with what I'm seeing so far. Chris Sale had 7 strikeouts in that game yesterday. For Atlanta, so maybe maybe he could be so the Sox will avoid seeing him this week. Unfortunately, I know a lot of Sox fans are hoping for that matchup, but that's not happening. But Atlanta looked okay. I gotta say this: that Toronto Tampa Bay series, they split their 4-gamer. That was actually very entertaining. To a lot of scoring in all 4 of those games, and including yesterday where Toronto avoided the 3 out of 4 and split that series. That was actually a lot of fun.
Yeah, we talked about Toronto being a disappointment in the playoffs last year. They forgot to bring their bats against that overrated, ugly-ass Minnesota Twins team, but I digress. But like you said, Lakina, they picked up where they left off in the regular season last year with their bats. Of course, you have newcomer Justin Turner, the former Red Sox and the former Dodger from the last few years. He's made a big difference in the lineup. I know he had a home run yesterday. Of course, you still got Kevon. No, I was going to say Kavai Evans. We ain't talking about musical, but Kevon Biggio, and you still have Vladimir.
He just played me guitar, by the way, Kevon Biggio, but that's a whole
right.
conversation.
But you still have Kevon Biggio. You still have Bo Bichette, and you still have Vlad Guerrero Jr., who's a top AL MVP candidate. So you still have some boppers. Well, we talked about them. We talked about their starting pitching, and that's got to be consistent for them this year. They're going to bring their bats, but can they bring the consistent starting pitching and go along with it?
Especially in that very competitive AL East. So we'll see what happens. Now, saying the AL East, the Yankees, they swept Houston, and I don't think anybody saw that coming at all. And Juan Soto, look, he wants a 9-figure contract. Like I said, he's been hitting the lights out hitting the lights out off that ball. He has at least 1 RBI in all 4 of those games against the Astros. And even though the RBI didn't become a stat until 1920, the fact that, look, he's still, he's getting guys, off base. He's getting on base. He actually had a home run in that first game against the Astros on Thursday. Just an amazing start. Now, again, I'm not saying the Yankees are going to win the AL East. I'm not saying that, but as they're going to start against the Houston Team, granted, they are kind of rebuilding, if you will, but still a very impressive, start for the Yankees if you're a fan.
Yeah, this is what happens when we acquire an underrated 5-tool player in Juan Soto. You saw what he did with the Washington Nationals, winning that World Series when he was 19 years old back in 2019. You saw what he did in limited action with the San Diego Padres for the last couple of years. You see why he's a 5-tool player. Not only he can hit for power, but he can hit for average as well. And he still has the defense to throw the guys out. We saw that last Thursday in the season opener. You threw a guy out when the Yankees had the bases loaded. Check out these statistics, okay, looking from that 4-game series. The Yankees scored 21 runs, Astros 11. The bullpen ERA, the Yankees 0, which is great. For Houston, it was over 6.5 runs.
Yeah, 3 of those 4 games were actually where the Yankees came back from being behind. So, look, I said, the Astros, I know Dusty Baker's not there anymore. So you got a whole new staff there. So it's going to be interesting to see how this team responds. And so far, it's not again, you don't want to make any assumptions this early in the season, but the fact that they had 3 of those 4 games, they could have won maybe. I'll give them 2 of them. That's not good if you're the Astros. So we'll see what happens with that. Now Baltimore looked pretty good. I mean, they lost a chance to sweep the Angels, but I really, you know how I feel about this Baltimore team, Sid. I love how this team plays. Ali Rosman, Reed. I mean, they're this is a team. Well, of course he kind of helped out for the Angels, but he's this sort of thing is kind of like gonna be interesting to see what happens here. I know they Perez. I know he's on the IL with that oblique, so that's good. That's a tough showing from the bullpen there for the Orioles because but you know what, Gunnar Henderson. That's really gonna be the thing here for me. I think it's gonna be guys like Rossman and Henderson and those guys, and their pitching too. They upgrade their pitching, but they need to be consistent, especially playing in that division.
Yeah, don't forget, like you said, Corbin Burns, who they acquired in the offseason from Milwaukee via trade. He's going to lead that starting staff. Don't forget about Anthony Santander as well as one of those underrated hitters that he's been coming up with clutch hits over the last year and a half or so. And don't forget about Cedric Mullins as well, one of the best defensive center fielders in the game. He get hit for average too at the top of that lineup. So Baltimore has the ball club that could possibly win it all. Hopefully they have learned from what happened last year, losing to the defending champion Rangers, being swept in that division series in the first round there. So Baltimore has the ingredients that you need to win a World Series.
Going to Central City Sports on Sports on Chicago, Lakeem McGee, Steve Brown with you. Going to the AL Central real quick. The Guardians went 3 out of 4 against the A's, and I kind of feel like Cleveland's one of those teams where you're kind of like, okay, could they get it going? I know they got it going last year. They kind of ran out of gas near the end. They're going to have, need guys like Stephen Kwan to kind of get things, going there. I know he had a really nice showing in the Bay Area where he's originally from. So I know a lot of his family were there too. I think they took out like most of the crowd there, but I digress. Jose Ramirez hit his first home run of the season a couple of days ago in those games against the A's. And look, they took care of business. That's all you can ask for if you're the Guardians.
And don't forget about Cleveland. They still have a chance because the Minnesota Twins, who lost the chance to sweep yesterday, got blanked by the Kansas City Royals 11-0. I know Minnesota had one of their guys go down yesterday. Yeah. So, and that's going to set Minnesota back a little bit. But if Minnesota starts out the game stubbly, if you're Cleveland, you could continue to win. You're going to be right there in that mediocre AL Central race. I know Terry Francona's not there anymore. You have a new manager there now. And don't forget Shane Bieber, their top starting pitcher. He's a free agent after the end of the season as well. So will he be traded at the trade deadline? We shall see. But right now, like you said, Cleveland took care of business against Oakland.
Going out west, the Mariners split their series with the Red Sox. They lost a tough one in that first series on Thursday. They did come back and win the next 2. They did lose the rubber match, which could have had a 3 out of 4. But even still, look at a good start. Julio Rodriguez hit the walk off on Saturday. But yeah, I kind of like where they're going here. I know we'll see where the Red Sox are. Halfway through the season. I know you got to think that they might be in contention for the wild card spot. But I really want this Mariners team because they had a tough showing last year. But hopefully they can kind of get it going here.
Yeah, they barely missed the playoffs last year. I know you were disappointed in your Mariners, Lakina, again. But Julio Rodriguez, you got to consider him. He's one of the best young players in the game, and he's a top AL MVP candidate as well. So Seattle, I like their bullpen. Their starting staff is still average at best, but if they can get one of their top guys to get hot, especially early, because that now I'm not going to call it that new corporate name, but that stadium formerly known as Seiko Field, that's a pitcher's ballpark. And so if Seattle can get their pitching down, I think they'll be all right. I picked them to win the AL West. So I got a lot right on this, even though the official pays a bet. But that's neither here or there. But I still believe in that talent, especially offensively, to get it done the AL West.
Get the pitching going, they'll be just fine. Going to the National League, of course, we talked about is that Scott Service calling? I don't know who that is. But the Phillies, of course, we talked about it earlier, Sid. They lost 2 out of 3 to the Braves. They did win the rubber match yesterday to avoid the sweep, and it'll be interesting to see if we know Bryce Harper we'll just see if they can get that pitching going. They'll be fine if they can just get that pitching going and be consistent. Schwarber, had a couple of big hits in that game yesterday. So for me, I think for the Phillies, they really need to get their cohesiveness in the pitching to hit, and they can kind of be right there. I don't know if they'll be able to win the AL East. I mean, the NL East, I should say. You got Atlanta, but they can definitely be up there for the wild card spots, like we talked about on Friday.
Yeah, they should be up for a wild card spot. Bryce Harper, like you said, he has to stay healthy for a whole year. Trey Turner, we saw what he did in his first year in the Phillies uniform last year. And if Harper can stay healthy and playing with Trey Turner in that lineup, and you mentioned also too was Kyle Schwarber, former Cub. The Philadelphia Phillies should be there neck and neck with the Braves.
Yeah, hopefully that's the case. And like I said, I really want those two to kind of battle it out for that division. So we'll see what happens there. Tough start for the Mets. I think 0-3. Jeez, against the Brewers. I mean, our buddy Ryan Field for this show, we got to get him back on hopefully at some point from ABC 7 New York. And it's not, I think he was there at Citi Field, and just I mean, they had a nice showing on Friday in the 7-6. They had that tough loss there. 4-1 they lost yesterday, and I don't know. I mean, honestly, if you're the Mets, you got to be scratching your head right now. You thought that maybe you could at least win one of these games against the Brewers or win 2 out of 3, but I know the Brewers, we'll see. They're a younger squad. They got a new manager. They got a solid bullpen, but I just don't see them keeping up. But the Mets are just. Ugh.
Did you check out that play last Friday, Lakina, in that home opener with both benches cleared?
Yes, I saw that.
I forgot who from Milwaukee, but he slid into Jeff McNeil, the second baseman for the Mets, and then they started yapping.
Jeff
McNeil. Yeah, he took exception to the slide. Yes, there's been 1,000 hard slides before. There's going to be 1,000 more afterwards, but both benches cleared over nothing. And it was Rhys Hoskins. Thank you very much via my app. Rhys Hoskins, the former Philadelphia Philly, now with the Brewers. He slid into Jeff McNeil at second base, trying to break up a double play. Both of them started yapping, and both benches cleared. But thank goodness nothing else happened after that.
Yeah, Pete Alonso has to get going too for the Mets, and he didn't have a good series. And that
he's a free agent after this season.
Yeah, so he got to feel a little bit more motivation to want to have to play very well, or else remember he's been the talk of trades throughout the off season. So if he doesn't get it going, it's gonna be a long season from the Mets again. So we'll see. Marlins a tough start. They are swept by the Pirates. Lost all.
Charlie Roger.
Yeah, I mean it's I know Jazz Chisholm. That open roof, I guess. They're playing the open roof. I know Jazz Chisholm was not very happy with that open roof because I guess the sun and whatnot. So maybe they're using that as an excuse, I guess. But I mean, we know the Pirates. The Pirates, we'll just kind of go into the Pirates. We know they had a big start last year. They kind of fell off. So 4-0. I mean, I know Pittsburgh fans, they want to be a little excited, but they know they can't. So, but yeah, the Marlins, I know they kind of they were up there last year, kind of fell out, ran out of gas. Now this open roof, in Miami. Jeez, it's just going to be interesting down there in South Beach.
Yeah, Chaz Chisholm, he had a home run yesterday. I know he had a couple of great catches as well. I know former White Sox players Tim Anderson and Jake Burger are there now. As you mentioned, Lakina, last year, they got swept in that 2-game series against Philadelphia in the wild card round. So Miami does have some young talent, but hopefully you can use this 0-4 start to get it going because, like we said, this NL East division is tough, minus the Washington Nationals. On the flip side for Pittsburgh, like you said, we've seen this movie before. They got out to the hot start last year. Of course, O'Neal Cruz forgot how to slide. He got injured against the White Sox around this time last year, and things went to hell after that. But they did finish out the year a little bit strong, which most people didn't talk about last year. But give it to at least the middle of May, and you will see if Pittsburgh will be taken seriously or not.
Well, yeah, speaking of the NL Central, of course, you got we talked about Pittsburgh, we talked about Milwaukee, Cincinnati. They had a nice start against the Nationals, to the Nationals, so 2 out of 3 there, and Encarnacion, I think that's going to be yeah. I mean, that's kind of like the lifting there, and it'll be the Christian, Encarnacion Strand, and also too Will Benson. We talked about how that young Cincy squad. Eli De La Cruz had a nice showing in that series as well. They were right there last year. They didn't make any real big moves. They're kind of like trying to build from within. We'll just see if this is going to be the thing that kind of keeps them in that Central.
Yeah, I'll get a chance to see them live and in person next weekend when they take on the Sox on the South Side. I like how I love Elly De La Cruz, and hopefully with that starting rotation, hopefully Hunter Green will stay healthy because he was injured most of last year. So, and those guys can use that momentum, what they did around the middle of last year. I think they'll be okay. Like I said, on our prediction segment last Friday, I did pick them to at least qualify for the wild card. So that offense is pretty good, but can they get consistent starting pitch? And that's the question. And can they stay healthy, i.e. Hunter Green?
That's going to be the key to health to Hunter Green. You could probably say had he been healthy, maybe they would have snuck in for one of those wild card spots the way they were playing.
You could make that argument, yeah.
You probably could have said that. So, like I said, it'll be interesting to see what they do here. But yeah, it's going to be interesting to see what happens with that. We talked about the Cubs, Cardinals, who's 3 out of 4 to the Dodgers. Mookie Betts, I mean, he had a really nice showing on Sunday Night Baseball. Nice way to showcase that. I mean, since the RBI became the official side, we talked about that earlier with Juan Soto. He's had 9+ hits, 9+ RBIs, 6+ walks, and 4+ home runs during that 4-gamer against the Cardinals. And his last 4 games, and the only one to do that was Babe Ruth all the way back in 1932. So, this is kind of more about what the Dodgers and Betts did than really what the Cardinals. The Cardinals, they did still win on Friday, but the rest of it was all Dodgers.
You could put Mookie Betts wherever on that diamond. He's still going to give you production from the plate. I know him and Freddie Freeman were MIA as far as that bats last year in that series against Arizona, but those two guys are MVP type candidates, and they're gonna give Shohei Ohtani a run for a run for his money. No pun intended, as far as the NL MVP is concerned. But I want to talk about Yoshinobu Yamamoto, his performance last Saturday night, and shout out to our guy Russ Dorsey from now with Yahoo Sports, friend of the show. He was there covering the game for Yahoo last Saturday. Guess what happened for the first time in 9 years at Dodger Stadium? A rain delay.
Oh, okay. Oh, yeah.
Yeah, a rain delay. But Yamamoto didn't pitch that badly. Lakina, I know there was some questions about his mechanics, and he really doesn't pitch from the stretch, but he really didn't do that bad. He pitched 5 innings. He only gave up 2 hits, but struck out 5. I thought it was a solid performance for what the situation was. We'll see when hitters adjust to his pitching style. He's going to have to adjust to what the hitters do to him. So with all rookies in all sports, you come out hot on fire right away. And when your opponents make their adjustments, you got to make the adjustments to them. So that's going to be the key here as Yamamoto goes through his first season in the major leagues.
Going to be fascinating to see how he does, and we'll see if other players can figure it out. I think it's really going to be the bats that are going to carry the load for the Dodgers. Of course, Freeman, and of course Betts and Muncy. Those are the kind of guys, of course, Shohei, with all the stuff that's been going on, all the nonsense behind the scenes. So, like we've been saying, I mean, this can't make it a distraction. I think they should be fine. Now, going against the Dodgers, they went 3 out of 4 against the Rockies. We talked about that earlier. Lourdes Gurriel Jr. had, I think, 5 RBIs during that series. And Christian Walker hit the ball very well. He's picking up where he left off last year as well. So, I mean, the Diamondbacks, hopefully they can kind of, feed off that, going to the World Series last year. But I think, look, like you said, they're no longer the Hunters. They're now the Hunted. And, look, the Dodgers and the Giants and the Padres are not going to take them lightly.
Yeah, speaking of the Padres and Giants, both those teams split 4-game series, each winning 2. Dylan Cease started off hot in that game last Saturday, but he got torched up in the middle of that game, and the Giants ran away with that one. But back to the Diamondbacks, as we mentioned, Lakina, you're the Hunters now. You're the Hunted. They still have a good young ball club over there. I still like their manager, and like you say, it's going to be tough just being the NL West alone. And if you can't fall behind too far early, Yes, they played Colorado. You only play the teams in front of you, but they took care of business. That's what you need to do if you're a good team, and that's what the Diamondbacks did at home.
Well, we'll see if they can keep it up against some of the big teams. I can't wait to see what they do against the Dodgers. And I know they got. Excuse me, I can't talk. Look at me, I can't talk to for the last like 5 minutes, but I digress. It'll be interesting because they play the Yankees starting tonight, so we'll see. Them against Soto. That's going to be interesting to see what happens there. Now, speaking of that Giants Padres game, do you see that home run that Tatis Jr. hit?
Yes.
Saturday. I don't think
Yes.
I don't think they found the ball yet. I think it's still out there, like in the middle of like in San Jose. I think so. But
yeah, Machado hit the warehouse yesterday.
yeah. So split series. Very entertaining. So I saw a little bit of that, and like I said, look, the Padres. Some people think the Padres might challenge the Diamondbacks and the Dodgers for the NL West. I think it's gonna get the wild card. If they can avoid any injuries, I think they should be fine. The pitching. Look, you got the Tatis Jr., Machado. Those guys need to kind of get it going, and we'll see.
Yeah, and hopefully Dylan Cease can get back on track and get some wins for that Padres starting staff, because they're still a good starting staff on paper. Now, before we break for the bottom of the hour, we'll give the schedules for this week, for today, and for the early part of this week, as we always do. Of course, these two games are going on right now. Braves and the White Sox. So we have bottom of the second, no score on the south side. We have the Cubs and the Rockies playing right now in the Cubs home opener. Bottom one, no score, and we have two. It will be 2 outs now as Bellinger pops up. So no score there. Bottom of the first at Wrigley Field. Here's the rest of the schedule for today. We have Pittsburgh at Washington, Kansas City at Baltimore. The Anaheim Angels at the Miami Marlins interleague series there. Cincinnati at Philadelphia. Texas at Tampa Bay. Detroit will continue their road trip. They'll visit New York to take on the Mets for 3 games. Blue Jays and Astros. This should be fun. There's always fun when those two teams play. Boston at Oakland. Cleveland at Seattle. You mentioned Yankees at Arizona. The Cardinals at the Padres. And the San Francisco Giants will start a 4-game series with the LA Dodgers in Chavez Ravine, i.e. Dodger Stadium, starting tonight.
Should be a fun series as well.
It's a 3-game series, not a 4-game series.
Yeah, say 3. Yeah, no, it's okay. Texas and Tampa Bay, that'll be the FS1 Monday game of the night there. Now going into tomorrow's games, Tuesday, Minnesota and Milwaukee. That should be a fun one. Two of Chicago baseball's top rivals facing each other. They faced each other a lot when Milwaukee was in the AL, so that should be a fun one when those two teams play. Cincinnati and Philadelphia, the second game of that series will be on TBS. Their Tuesday game, double header there. Let's see, Cleveland and Seattle, that should be a fun one. They start that series. St. Louis and San Diego, they start their series as well. And that Giants Dodgers series will be the second game of that TBS doubleheader at 9:10.
And your games for Thursday looks like this. The White Sox will play Kansas City. That's Kansas City's home opener. The Pirates and the Nationals. Cleveland at Minnesota. I believe that's Minnesota's home opener. And we'll have the Miami Marlins at the St. Louis Cardinals. That'll be the Cardinals' home opener as well. That's your schedule for Thursday and for this week in Major League Baseball.
All right, so got a lot to do here. After the break, of course, we got Bulls and NBA as they're coming down the home stretch. Bulls
seesaw.
Definitely a seesaw battle there. And of course, they have a big game tonight. Talk about the Bulls. LeBron still shows that he's still got it. Some sports media news, Blackhawks and Old School TV Monday, and so much more. That might be LeBron calling right now. Lakina McGee, City Town, 17 Sports on Sports of Chicago. We're wrapping things up coming up right after this.
This year, my mom got me the perfect bag for back to school.
These colorful binders help me stay organized.
These headphones are just what I need for studying.
These new sneakers are just what I needed for the new year.
This jacket is a real must-have.
My parents got me the skateboard I wanted. It's pretty cool.
These scissors really come in handy in art class. These colored pencils, too.
These new socks, they can be a real lifesaver.
I finally got my own phone to stay in touch with my mom.
All right, 7 o'clock. 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 7 o'clock
Trisha's having a sleepover tonight. Can I go?
I wonder about Lucy's friends. What should I say? I know you're only 10, but one of these days a friend will offer you a drink. And alcohol at your age can lead to so many things. None of them good.
So can I go to the sleepover?
Lucy, I want you to promise me
I
something.
finished my homework.
Bigger promise. If there's any drinking, I want you to say, "No thanks, not my thing."
Mom.
I promise you. Your real friends won't care. Deal?
Sure.
Really?
I promise, Mom.
They really do hear you.
Did you pack your toothbrush?
For tips on how to start the talk, visit underagedrinking.samhsa.gov, a public service message from the Substance Abuse and Mental Health Services Administration.
Hey, this is Dr. J, and I listen to Sean and Maya in the morning.
Welcome back to the last segment of the show for today on this Monday edition of Second City Sports. No, it's not an April Fool's, folks. We're live and in living color right here on Sports Zone Chicago. I'm Sid. That's Lakina. You can follow yours truly on the Twitter, X, and the IG at SidKid80. Once again, it's SidKid80. That's SIDKID80. SIDKID80.
You follow my Keita McGee on the Twitter, X, Akia's going in the IG.
We have less than 25 minutes left for this extravaganza. We call it Sports Talk Radio Show. This is our last break of the show for today. So if you have any last-minute questions or comments, you better get them in now. Go to Sports Zone Chicago's Facebook page or at Sports Zone Chicago on YouTube. Type in those questions or comments in the comments section. Lakina will get them up on the screen for you.
Welcome to the seesaw battle that is the Bulls. The Bulls lose a tough one to the Nets on Friday. But they come back yesterday and sweep their season series against the T-Wolves, the top seed team in the West. I guess I don't know. I guess that's kind of how it's been for the Bulls this year. Well, the last couple years, they beat the teams that that they should beat, but they beat them anyway. Then they lose to teams that they shouldn't beat. So I guess the seesaw theme. We were talking about over the weekend. I know DeRozan had about 34 points in that win. I know Ayo had a really solid showing as well in that game last night. But look, they got a big game against Atlanta. They're only a game and a half up in that for that ninth playoff spot. I know they've been playing well. They're talking about Atlanta has, but look, the Bulls are doing some weird stuff. So what else can I say? It's been weird, I guess.
Yeah, I know you want the pain to go away, Lakina, and it's going to come within the next 2 or 3 weeks or so. So don't you worry, young lady. But as far as last night is concerned, the Bulls shot the ball well overall, 52% overall, 58% from three-point range. I think that's the best three-point percentage in the game this season. So I know Caruso has some big shots in there as well. I know they committed 16 turnovers, but they had a +6 rebounding edge. They had 43-37 over Minnesota, and they limited Anthony Edwards to just 22 points. So that's that was encouraging. And I know they held Minnesota to only 101 points, so that was also encouraging as well. And like you said, they swept the season series from the T-Wolves. And given the fact had the way they played against this team last year, especially in Minnesota when Zach LaVine and DeMar DeRozan allegedly had that verbal fight outside the locker room last December of last year. But, the Bulls, like you said, they tease us. You losing to teams like Brooklyn and Washington like you have been doing the last couple of weeks, but then you turn around and beat these good teams. You're giving your fans false hope. And like you said, it's nothing else you really can say about this Bulls team. They've been consistently inconsistent all year long. I know they're 36 and 39 right now, but just consider this, Lakina, excuse me.
Mm-hmm.
If you haven't lost to Washington and Brooklyn over the last 2 weeks, this team would be at 500 or a game over 500. Now, am I saying they're going to go on this big run? No, but they've been consistently inconsistent all year long.
Yeah, they got 7 games left. To Caruso's credit, he did tame Anthony Edwards, and said the IO did too. So I guess that is a plus. So I guess maybe, like I said, they have a big one against Atlanta tonight. Second game of a back-to-back at home. So I know Atlanta's been playing a little bit better lately, but we'll see if they can try to at least not have a letdown. So we'll see what happens. Golden State, they had to hang on against Victor Wembanyama and the gang in San Antonio. Steph had 33 points, had a couple of big shots. Wembanyama had 32 points. Very interesting showing there. We'll talk about the rest of the stuff in a second. Sacramento held on against Utah. Well, we'll just go through some of the important games. We'll go through all of them. Dallas, they beat Houston. A game here that's very interesting. Shai Gilgeous-Alexander's jumper with about, I think, like 1.8 left or something like that. They helped the Thunder beat the Knicks, but also is what Josh Hart said after the game. He says that, well, at least from what he can tell, like Julius Randle, OG Anunoby might be out for the rest of the season. So this might be the type of team that you're going to get if you're a Knicks fan. Yeah, that's not good.
Yeah, and I was getting ready to say the Knicks need those two bodies healthy as possible going into the playoffs. But if Josh Hart is correct, that Knicks team is in trouble. But on the flip side for OKC, Lakina, I think Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, in my view, has jumped over Anthony Edwards as top candidate for MVP. I know people want to talk about Jokic and you want to talk about some of the others, but this guy, we talked about him last year, Lakina, making his first All-Star team, which was very encouraging to him. But the Oklahoma City Thunder still trying to hang on to that number one spot in the West over Minnesota, over Denver, and he's had a magnificent season. In my opinion, he's the number one candidate for MVP right now.
I think it's going to be him and Jokic, I think. So we'll see what happens with that. Speaking of Denver, did beat Cleveland 130-101. He had 26, 12, and 12 boards and like 11 assists or something like that. So, that'll pump sold there. Miami with a nice win against the Wizards. Philadelphia easily over Toronto, but some big news here. Apparently, Joel Embiid has been cleared for contact. So could we see him within the next week or two? Maybe.
According to Shams, we may see him tomorrow. Maybe we'll see. Philadelphia, technically, they're in the play-in tournament right now. You definitely don't want to fall too far behind. And it's been tough without Embiid over the last month and a half. But if they get him back within the next few days, I think Philadelphia will be fine.
Clippers, no trouble with the Hornets, but the Lakers beat the Nets, and LeBron had 40 points, which ties a season high, and still, doing his thing at his age. And look, the Lakers, they're 42 and 33. They're kind of like right there in the middle of that play-in. And look, the Lakers have been playing very well lately, so we'll see if they can kind of like at least improve their seeing in the play-in.
I know LeBron James said after the game that he doesn't know how long he's going to do this, but I think he's correct in that because Father Time is undefeated. I know he's starting to admit that a little bit publicly, but I think what he said was as a message to his team. I'm tired of carrying you guys every night. I cannot continue to do this, especially on that sprained ankle. Anthony Davis, Austin Reeves, and others, Rui Hachimura, D'Angelo Russell, you guys got to help me on a consistent basis. Let's go.
Well, look, I'm glad he's kind of speaking up a little bit more about that because, like I said, he doesn't think how long he can do this. He's 39, folks. I mean, he can't keep doing this. So, especially like you said, he still has that bum ankle. So, we'll see if we'll see where the let's go there. The Lakers, the score to Saturday's games real quick. The Bucks, no trouble with Atlanta. Orlando, no trouble in Memphis, and Boston with a nice showing against the Pelicans. Jason Tatum had 23.
Yeah, I know he's supposed to be the star of the team. I know many people have him as a top 5 MVP candidate. But it was nice to see him bounce back. I know the Celtics have clinched everything in the Eastern Conference. I know they've been struggling a little bit lately, but it was nice to see them get back on track and win a tough game on the road, especially against a very good team in New Orleans.
Yeah, that was a nice showing there for Boston. Going into Friday's games real quick. Of course, just the important ones. The Mavs, so they held off the Kings. Minnesota with a nice win against Denver. Anthony Edwards had 25 there. OKC over Phoenix, and I'm a little worried about this Phoenix squad. Sid, they don't have a floor, kind of like a floor drill to kind of like control the tempo of the offense. So they're in the play-in right now, and I feel like if they make the play-in, it could be, oh God, it could. I think KD might be asking for a trip out of town. I think, especially if they lose the play-in. I'm serious though.
Yeah, and their lack of bench play is going to hurt them as well. So we'll see what happens with the Phoenix Suns. Real quickly, Kina, since it's on my mind, I saw this on social media last night. Of course, Dallas beat Houston last night, ended Houston's 11-game winning streak. Did you check out what Luka Doncic did before the game? He did a trick shot off the Houston Rockets scoreboard and it went into the basket. For those of you that missed it, you can check it out right here on YouTube or go to any social media outlet and type in NBA and Luka Doncic. You'll see it right there. I thought it was awesome.
That was actually pretty funny, and also too was funny. Speaking of Jokic, he was actually late for his press. He was actually watching the rest of the that North Carolina State Duke game. He's a big fan of DJ Burns Jr. He said he really likes how he plays. So both of them are nice showing there by both the Serbians players last night, both on and off the court. Pretty cool stuff there. Any other game? Well, the Clippers, they've had a nice East Coast trip so far. They beat Orlando. The Pacers got the best of the Lakers, 109-90, and Golden State, they're beating the Hornets. And look, I know Steph has kind of been like at the forefront of all the Draymond's antics, I guess, from last week, but at least right now they've actually been undefeated since those antics. So I guess maybe Draymond may have started something. Who knows? But,
yeah, and you talked about Golden State, another big win last night over San Antonio. They win it by 4 on the road. Klay Thompson came up big with that 3-point shot to basically seal the game for the Warriors. I want to talk about the Knicks. Looking, you talking about they lost a tough one last night at MSG against the Thunder. They lost another tough one on last Friday at San Antonio. I know many Knicks fans sure had this game down as an easy win, but San Antonio, they don't look good on paper outside of Victor Wembanyama, who's clearly your winner of the Rookie of the Year award. But the Spurs came up big, beating the Knicks by 4 at home.
Yeah, that was a big loss there, and it's sort of like, I mean, if it's true what Josh Hart said in that, it looks like Anunoby and Randall are pretty much done for the year. Look, we've seen this movie before here in Chicago. I know it's when Tibbs at Minnesota, there were people who were saying the same thing there. So you wonder, like, Tibbs, playing these guys, to the ground. I mean, I'm not saying that Knicks fans should be worried, but I think they should be a little bit.
I think those voices already getting loud. Listen to both sports radio stations in that city. It depends on who they match up in that first round. It's going to get even louder.
Real quick. I think OKC, they clinched the playoff spot. They did. I think like both the Nuggets and the Thunder clinched playoff spots with their wins yesterday. So those are only 3 of them. Of course, them in Boston as well. So we'll see what happens these next 7 or 8 games, depending on where you're at this late in the season. Now, going into this week's game, some big wins here. Starting tonight, you got the Hornets hosting the Celtics, Memphis and Detroit, Brooklyn. Boom. Brooklyn and Indiana, Portland and Orlando. We've got, of course, talk about the Bulls. They host the Hawks. That's a big one there. And Phoenix hoping to bounce back from those last couple of tough losses. They play the Pelicans on NBA TV at 7.
Yeah, bigger game for the Phoenix Suns right here. So the Kevin Durant and crew, they need to get back on track. Here's your schedule for Tuesday, tomorrow. And it looks like this. The Lakers continue their East Coast road trip. They'll visit Toronto. Milwaukee will visit our nation's capital to take on the Washington Wizards. OKC will visit Philadelphia. That's the first half of that TNT Tuesday night doubleheader. Maybe Joel Embiid comes back. Maybe not. We shall see. We have the New York Knicks. They'll travel to South Beach to face the Miami Heat. Houston will face Minnesota. San Antonio will visit Denver. Cleveland will take on Utah. The Clippers and the Kings will do battle in Sacramento at 9 o'clock. Big game for both teams there. Bigger game for Sacramento because they're in the play-in tournament. In the second half of that TNT Tuesday night doubleheader, this was a makeup game from January 19th. The Mavericks and the Warriors.
Definitely a big game for both teams as Dallas, they're kind of right there in that play-in spot as well. So you got to think if you're Dallas, you want to try to win this makeup game to try to kind of get it going here. We'll see what happens. Wednesday, I should say, April 3rd, you got Portland and Charlotte at 6. You got the Lakers finishing up their East Coast trip facing the Wizards. Detroit and Atlanta at 6:30. Good one here. Could this be an NBA Finals preview? The first game of the ESPN doubleheader on Wednesday. You got OKC and Boston. Indiana and Brooklyn. Milwaukee hosts Memphis. Toronto and Minnesota. Orlando and the Pelicans. And the second game of the ESPN Wednesday doubleheader, Cleveland and Phoenix.
Your schedule for Thursday looks like this. Philadelphia face Miami. The first game of that TNT Thursday night doubleheader, Sacramento at New York. Ooh, that should be a dandy one way or the other. The rest of the Thursday schedule looks like this. Atlanta will visit Dallas. The Warriors will face the Houston Rockets. That should have been on TNT, but I digress. And the second half of that TNT Thursday night doubleheader will feature the Denver Nuggets and the Los Angeles Clippers.
And that is your – no, go ahead.
And yep, and that's your schedule for Thursday in this week in the NBA.
This is Second City Sports on Sports Zone Chicago. Lakina McGee, Cindy Brown with you. We got a few more minutes left. So we got some tough news coming down across the wires here in the NFL. Veteran cornerback Vontae Davis has passed away at age 36. This is according to Chester Frazier, who, of course, Vontae Davis played in Illinois. They were teammates. This is according to, I know he's still very, very close, and so a tough news, I guess, once again for the NFL. And was a 5-time Pro Bowler, probably one of the best, to ever do in a corner. Just a tough loss, and our thoughts go out to his family and his teammates.
Yes, I echo those same sentiments as well. I couldn't get to the story looking at it because we were on commercial break. I saw this on social media doing the commercial break, and I just got the alert right here from ESPN. Of course, remember it was the quote-unquote controversial move, the way he decided to retire. He played in his last game, and he said his heart wasn't in it anymore, so he left right in the middle of the game, and he didn't play anymore. I just hope, like I said, I didn't get a chance to read the story, folks, so whatever happened, don't hold me to it, but I just hope it wasn't any foul play involved. I'm not saying it was. I just hope there was no foul play involved.
Same here. Hopefully, hopefully maybe, by, when we come back Friday, hopefully when we have some answers, we'll pass it along to you guys. But yeah, rest in peace to one of the NFL's best corners, Vontae Davis. Just a sad story, and I just saw it on the Miami, because he was playing with Miami when he did that. I think they were playing the Jets or the Colts. I think when he did that, when we kind of literally retired at halftime. So
he was with Buffalo. He was with Buffalo.
Oh, he was with Buffalo. Okay, yeah, I figured that. Okay, because they're okay at the time. So when that happened, oh yeah, that's right. Yeah, because he played with so many teams. I think they were playing the Jets, I think. So, yeah. So hopefully we'll have some updates, and we'll see what happens. Hopefully we'll pass it along to you if we do get any updates here on Friday. But some more tough news. So anything else before we go to Old School TV Monday?
Just a couple of RIPs to get to real quick before we forget. Louis Gossett Jr., we didn't mention this on Friday. He passed away at the age of 87. Of course, we remember him in the Iron Eagle movies. I remember watching those as a kid. They reran those so many times on WGN TV here in Chicago, of course, on cable, Showtime, and HBO and Cinemax as well. And of course, he was a big leader for social justice. He was behind most of those charitable causes. Of course, he got his start in television and then on stage. Remember him, Lakina? I forgot he was on the Jeffersons for a couple of episodes, but I remember him on Good Times. He was He was a restaurant owner. He wanted to marry Thelma. She was 19. He was 42.
Yep, I remember that. Yeah, I remember that. They actually showed that episode on YouTube. They actually highlighted that with news of his passing. He also was on the Rockford Files. I think that was one of his very first television roles.
That's right.
For a couple episodes. I think he helped out Jim Rockford with the case a couple of times. So in the early 70s, at the height of that show's popularity, of course, won the Oscar for Officer and a Gentleman, and you saw the surprised look on his face when he because he was up against some really good ones, Charles Durning, John Lithgow, who actually looked exactly the same as he did even back then. But and it was unfortunately he wasn't able to build on that, but he still worked consistently. He was on Roots too, so
the original
first
Roots, yes.
Roots, I shouldn't say that. Roots, comma 2. I'll meant to say it that way, but he's a really great actor, a really great guy, and rest in peace to him. And thoughts of prayers. I know his son posted some really sweet on his Facebook page, so make sure you guys check that out. But R.I.P. to one of the all-time greats.
Yes, Mr. Louis Gossett Jr., your legacy will live on forever. Every role that he played, he had integrity. He represented himself with class and dignity, and you saw that with every role he played in every TV project, movie, specials that he did, and he carried himself with great class. I wish a whole lot more people would do that, and so his legacy will live on forever.
Another RIP to another veteran. I saw this news late Friday. Tommy Williams, who was the voice of Lakeshore Sports, and for all across the Chicagoland and Northwest Indiana, he passed away after a long battle with cancer. And I remember, especially back in the day, back in the late 90s, early 2000s, when Lakeshore Sports, when they were showing Purdue basketball games, Indiana games, and high school games, when they were showing those, you heard his voice. This is Lakeshore Sports, or some other stuff that he did. He was kind of like that voice. He had that great gold tone voice that kind of, you knew who it was. It's when you saw his face, like, oh, okay, it's a brother. So that was really cool. That was tough news to hear over the weekend as well.
Of course, he was a long-time sports talk show host here in Chicago on 670. The Score, of course, on the Score 1116, of course, on 670. Then he worked at ESPN 1000 for a minute. He worked on, had a short stint on the old Sporting News Radio. I know he was working, like you said, out of Northwest Indiana during his later years, but I really liked his nighttime talk show. Of course, when they moved over to 670, he followed Jay Hood, because Jay Hood, when they gave him his own show, he was on from 6:30 to 9. Then Tommy Williams was on from 9 p.m. to midnight. I hear your partner. And he was very engaging with the listeners. He brought the passion, he brought the knowledge, he brought the excitement. I really enjoyed listening to him. It was a shame that he left the Score. Like I said, he was at ESPN 1000 for a minute, and then a short stint at Sporting News Radio. So too bad that he couldn't stay longer at 670 the Score. Like I said, I really enjoyed his work. And like you said, you saw him on television a couple of times. Okay, he's one of us. And so, and like I said, we support everybody. We're not on this hate trip or anything like that. But representation is important. But at the end of the day, it's how well you do your job. And he was one of the best to do it.
Yeah, and I remember Hoodie said that he was one of his mentors. I remember that Tommy, he actually worked with him when they were both at the Score. I mean, he could have just been, said, no, I don't want to help you. It's only more for one of us, blah, blah, blah. He actually helped him. He actually, mentored him and guided him. So that, just showed how a classy guy he was, not just a great voice. Like you said, very engaging. I know there were folks that were sharing some stories about how, when they met him and such. So that was really sweet. So RIP to Mr. Williams as well.
Yeah, and a sad anniversary today, Lakita. I don't want to, like I said, we're not going to end on this, obviously, because we have Old School TV Monday. But I was going to say, if for those of you that are older than us, you remember this day, 40, I believe it was 40 years ago today. A legendary singer from Motown. He was originally born and raised in Washington, D.C. Mr. Marvin Gaye passed away. He was shot in his home in Los Angeles. And many people thought it was a joke because it was April Fool's Day, but unfortunately it was not a joke. And I know him and his father had a tough relationship because his father was a preacher, and his father wanted him to do gospel, and Marvin Gaye followed his heart. He did secular music, and of course we could run down all the hits that he had over his career. Of course, and him and the late Tammy Terrell had a great duet. Of course, he was heartbroken when she passed away at a young age. So Marvin Gaye, one of the best singers to do it. He had a great career. Of course, many of his songs are still being heard today, sampled, used in movies, commercials, things along that line. I'm sure many of his documentaries that people have made of him will be seen on YouTube today. And Lakina, like I said, we were kids when this happened, but I remember my late mother telling the stories, of course, listen to stories from other DJs in Chicago and across the country on how the world just shut down. And of course, many people, including yours truly, my late mother hated it. I think she was trolling me, but that's a whole nother issue. But remember the year before, in February of '83 at the NBA All-Star Game in Los Angeles, we did the national anthem. And that's the standard that many people that tried to live up to this day. The only person that came close was Whitney Houston during that Buffalo Bills New York Giants Super Bowl January of '91.
Yeah, and I remember because my mom was also a big fan of Marvin's, and you know, I think like you said, I think everyone was just in shock when that happened. I was only 4 at the time, but it you know, I was only like 3, but I kind of knew that something was you know, kind of went on because, you know, people were kind of upset, they were crying. So yeah, it was a tough news, not just for the music industry, but also too for everyone who was a big fan of his. So you know, R.I.P. to him. And incidentally, there was some tapes that have been found of I don't know if they were like old songs, you know, the unreleased songs, or just like maybe a diary type, but there was a Belgian singer who passed away a few weeks ago, and Marvin gave those tapes to the singer. His family has them, and of course, we know how Marvin's family, his estate, I'm sure they're on their phone with their lawyers as we speak. So, well, we'll probably never know the contents of those tapes. So, just another interesting mystery to that.
Yeah, and just a couple other things before we move on to Old School TV Monday. Marvin Gaye, don't forget too, he was on his comeback trail because remember he fled the country for a little bit. Then he came back with that Sexual Healing album, and he had a couple other hits off that album too. I can't remember right now, but he was on his comeback trail, and I think it's not the full episode, but I think it's just clips. Looking, I think I'll give you the link after the show, but. He was on. Remember, he was on Soul Train. I think obviously it was prior to his death. I think the year before, I believe it was the summer of '83. He performed Sexual Healing on that show, and I believe this was one of the last times Don Cornelius let the audience, i.e., the dancers, ask the artist questions. He did that in that episode as well. I remember watching that about a year or so ago, and it was just like I said, this was a special tribute episode to him, and Don Cornelius did that for Marvin Gaye, of course. Him and Don Cornelius, they had a very good relationship. Remember, Lakina, I saw this on YouTube as well. Of course, it's now taken down by Paramount, those idiots. But remember back, I want to say it was 76 or 77 when Marvin Gaye came back on Soul Train. They took not one, but 2 segments. Both of them played basketball against each other. Smokey Robinson was the referee. Now, Marvin Gaye won 2 baskets to 1, but those 2 segments were entertaining. It was funny as hell. Smokey Robinson played the referee. If that clip is out somewhere, again, please let me know. But it was very entertaining.
I remember he actually was also on American Bandstand as well. And I think one of the I remember Dick Clark was very devastated when I remember hearing about that. And I know that, you know, I kind of saw because he did a show right after the news of his death. I'm talking about Marvin Gaye's death. You can tell that, you know, Dick Clark, and I'm sure others too were very devastated. So they actually played the Sexual Healing song, you know, that was one of his first songs that, you know, that they played after the news of his death. So all that kind of intertwined with all the music and stuff. So yeah, R.I.P. to one of the all-time greats, and the saga continues among, you know, these tapes of his that newly discovered.
All right, now to Old School TV Monday, Lakina, and yours truly will be nice today. We have a double play action here of Old School TV Monday, with today being the Chicago Cubs home opener. I think you brought it up earlier before we came on air. 30 years ago, this coming Thursday, during that damn shortened strike year of 1994, the Cubs opened up their home schedule against the New York Mets. And Carl Tuffy Rhodes hit 3 home runs in that 12-7 loss to the New York Mets. And all 3 of those home runs came off of Dwight Doc Gooden. Yeah, that's right. Before that game, Dwight Doc Gooden he had a lifetime record of 26 and 4, I believe, against the Cubs, and 26 and 9, I should say, I believe, against the Cubs. And then, of course, Tuffy Rhodes sent out 3 home runs on that day. I remember that game too. I came home from school. And I was like, something happened. And my mom had the radio on at that time on 820. I was like, Carl Tuffy Rhodes made history, blah blah blah. And it was 3 home runs against Dwight Gooden. He was still a big name at that time. He was getting older, but I watched the game on YouTube last night. You should go check it out on YouTube, folks. The whole game's on there. But it's just some interesting names I wanted to point out real quick, Lakina, from that game, especially from the New York Mets side. I was just pointing out real quick. Remember this name, Jeremy Benitez, before Milwaukee?
Oh, yeah. For Brewer.
David Segui?
Yep. Oh, yeah.
Fernando Vina?
Yep.
A young Jeff Kent before San Francisco?
Yeah, pre-Giants Jeff Kent. Yep.
Yes. Bobby Bonilla after Pittsburgh.
Yep.
Of course, he's still getting checks from the Mets to
still
this day.
Still getting checks. Yep, still getting those checks.
A left fielder named Kevin McReynolds, and this name is definitely connected to Chicago Cubs history. Todd Hundley, I think he did play for the Cubs for a minute.
He did.
Remember his father, Randy Hundley.
Yeah, he did. Yeah, because his dad played here back in the 70s. And yeah, pretty interesting. Real quick, I know you got a double dose, but yeah, I remember that game. I actually came home from school. It was actually right out because at the time I only lived right around the corner from the school I was attending to at the time, so I was able to come back, and I actually turned it on, and he had just hit his second home run. So it was just like one of those things where you're just like, okay, but unfortunately he wasn't able to build off that. I think he only ended up hitting like 11 home runs that whole season. So, that was just like, okay, but another one of those great opening day, that's how some people say, the Tuffy Rhodes, game. And of course that usually happens at least once, every opening day.
Yep. Like I said, the Mets back on April 4th, 1994, the Mets beat the Cubs on opening day 12-8, despite 3 home runs from Mr. Carl Tuffy Rhodes. Now, this anniversary will be next Thursday, but 40 years ago this season, of course, the Chicago Cubs, the 84 Cubs, they were on their way to win that division. But they also faced the New York Mets in that whole opener 40 years ago next Thursday on April 13th. But this time, the Cubs defeated the Mets 11-2. Guess who was the starting pitcher for the New York Mets on that day, Lakina, without Googling?
Oh, gosh. Okay, it wasn't Doc. Shoot. Darn it. I can't. Oh, I have his head. Go ahead, because we're kind of pushing the time.
You should have went with your first guess. It was Dwight Doc Gooden.
It was Doc again. Okay, yeah.
Yes,
he was his picture. Yeah, he was only 19. Yeah, I think it was only like his second year, like his first year with the Mets, and and the Cubs kind of they kind of threw hit the ball off of him, and not his best start, but he was able to build off that, and that kind of started a semi-magical season for the Cubs, but it didn't end well after that. But it was a nice start for them, and look, Doc ended up doing okay, and the Cubs actually ended up having a great season, so it's fine.
And check out these names from the New York Mets real quick. Ron Gardenhire. Yes, that's that same Gardenhire that managed the Twins and the Tigers a few years ago.
Mm-hmm.
Jose Kendall. Keith Hernandez, now working with the Mets on SNY.
Mm-hmm.
George Foster.
Yep.
Darryl Strawberry. Mookie Wilson, who have an impact with the Mets 2 years later.
Mm-hmm.
John Gibbons.
Yeah.
And this name is definitely connected to the Chicago Cubs. As the great Mike Murphy, former talk show host in the town, was give this guy a famous nickname, Ed Lynch, a.k.a. Eddie McLunch.
Eddie McLunch. Oh, my God. Yes. Oh, my God. And also, too, Darryl Strawberry, of course, he's doing better. He had a heart attack I think the week before last. I know on his birthday, no less, but he's doing better. I think he's out of the hospital now. So, hope us keep going with speedy recovery, Mr. Strawberry.
Yes, and of course, a couple of famous names from the Cubs. On the flip side, Bobby Dernier, who was the starting center fielder. Ryan Sandberg. This was 2 months before that game against St. Louis on NBC on that famous Saturday afternoon. The Sarge, Gary Matthews in left field. Leon Durham before the buffer in the playoffs against San Diego.
Him.
Exactly. Larry Borer, future MLB manager. And your starting pitcher that day for the Cubs was Mr. Steve Trout.
Oh, Trout. Oh, yeah. Steve Trout, that is. And also, same thing, Ryan Sandberg. He got the clean bill of health. I know he's been battling cancer. He got the clean, everything so far so good. Hopefully he'll have the clean bill of health in a few weeks. So, great for Rhino as well. But, yeah, it was very good good shout out to those old school TV Mondays. For good Lord, 30 years for a Tuffy Rhodes game. My God.
Yeah, I know. We both feel old after that. You can find both those games in its entirety on YouTube. I know the game is going by quickly as we turn back to current time. So the Cubs and the Rockies are still scoreless at the top of the fourth at Wrigley Field. So for you Cub fans that are watching us, those two games are available on YouTube for your viewing pleasure in its entirety. So for Old School TV Monday, we salute the 1994 and the 1984 Cubs home openers. Lakina closes out.
Great stuff, Sid. You can follow Makina McGee on the Twitter, XQs, Orgina, IG. Yeah, very good.
You can follow yours truly, Sydney Brown, on the Twitter, X, and the IG at SidKid80. Once again, it's SidKid80. That's SIDKID80. That's SIDKID80. Make sure you follow Sports Zone Chicago on all social media platforms. Make sure you download that Sports Zone Chicago app. Please subscribe to our podcast. We are located at Ward Media Podcast. That's WARR Media, PODCASTS. We are on all podcast platforms, including that iHeartRadio app. And while you're ready, please give Ward Media a follow at WARR Media on all social media platforms. And thank you very much in advance for your support.
Like, share, subscribe, and tell your friends.
Tune in to Second City Sports live in living color every Monday, every Friday from noon to 2 p.m. Central Standard Time, right here on Sports Zone Chicago. One more time, as Lakina would say, catch Second City Sports live in living color every Monday, every Friday from noon to 2 p.m. Central Standard Time, right here on Sports Zone Chicago. Tune in.
And also, too, you can catch Sports Zone Chicago anytime, anywhere on Roku TV. Go to your Play Store. If you got the Roku TV app on your phone or whatever device you got, type in Sports Zone Chicago. You can catch our show, Sean and Maya, the Smoke Fellas. I know What's Up Cuz gonna have some good stuff tonight. I know Jason Palmer, I'm sure, with Vontae Davis's death. I know that that they, it's gonna be a kind of a subtle mood here, but catch our show and the other shows anytime you want, 7 days a week. It's all right there for you.
Yep, on Roku TV, and we will provide.
Okay, so everyone, it's gonna be a little bit rainy and windy in a lot of parts of the country. So try to stay safe and dry. Enjoy the hoops, enjoy the baseball, and so much more. Of course, it's a good time of year. We're going to the springtime. For Sid, I'm Lakina, the Second City Sports on Sports Zone Chicago, and we'll see you Friday.
Holla!